morning. It is Wednesday, March 4th, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivers his controversial speech before U.S. lawmakers. 2 weeks ahead of the Israeli elections, we take a close look at the women running in the race. And later and throughout the show, we go to the heart of Tel Aviv, where our own Ron Friedman is set and ready to hear what Israelis really care about in these elections. Ron, where are you?
Good morning. I'm here in one of the central streets of Tel Aviv, Rothschild Boulevard, where 4 years ago a massive street movement began to protest high costs of living in Israel. We'll check with people here if that's still on their radar ahead of the upcoming elections.
Good morning, I'm Yael Levi, and we begin with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's explosive speech before U.S. lawmakers yesterday. Now, standing at the rostrum of the House of Representatives, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu directly challenged the Obama administration's top foreign policy goal yesterday, saying negotiations with Iran were headed for a very bad deal and that the world is better off without it. As Republican members of Congress applauded loudly and many Democrats glared, Netanyahu laid out his case for opposing the administration's course. It was an impassioned speech that warned the deal being formulated now is not stopping an Iranian bomb, rather paving the way to it. But in spite of the standing ovation the Israeli Prime Minister received in the Republican House of Representatives, key questions remain this morning. Does the speech really stand a chance to stop the deal being negotiated with Iran? Who was it really intended for, and what effect will it have on relations with the White House in the near future? And of course, the not-so-white elephant in the room, what effect does it have, if any, on the upcoming Israeli elections? And to try and figure out this, we are joined in studio by Netanyahu's former spokesman, Aviv Bushinsky. Aviv, good morning to you. And by journalist turned Labour Party member, Ksenia Svetlova. Good morning to you, Ksenia, the other woman in the studio. Then, of course, co-chair of the Republicans abroad in Israel, Mark Zell. Mark, such a pleasure.
Yeah, it's always great to be here.
There we go. And Sheldon Shore, spokesman for the American Democratic Party in Israel. Same goes to you.
Good morning.
Before we break it down, let's take a look at the following report by the I-24 News Desk about the speech that launched so much controversy.
The climactic event that has been anticipated for weeks now by Israelis, Americans, and others in the international community finally arrived Tuesday as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived on Capitol Hill for a speech to a joint session of the U.S. Congress. The House was packed, though not entirely by its usual inhabitants. 57 congressional Democrats were absent, conveying their protest at the manner of Netanyahu's arrival in Washington by staying at home. The Prime Minister began by attempting to smooth over tensions with the White House.
I deeply regret that some perceive my being here as political. That was never my intention.
But no representative of the administration was present, neither senior nor junior. Vice President Joe Biden's seat was filled by Republican Senator Orrin Hatch, President pro tempore of the Senate. Netanyahu soon turned to the matter at hand, Iran, drawing a comparison with the other jihadist threat that has captivated international attention recently.
To defeat ISIS and let Iran get nuclear weapons would be to win the battle but lose the war. We can't let that happen.
The Prime Minister then moved on to the problems he sees in the proposed deal currently on the table.
That any deal with Iran will include two major concessions to Iran. Not a single nuclear facility would be demolished. Iran's breakout time would be very short, about a year by U.S. assessment, even shorter by Israel's.
Netanyahu did not divulge classified information, instead using his own analysis of the information available to the public, pointing out the problem of placing too much faith in inspectors.
Iran was also caught twice, not once, twice, operating secret nuclear facilities in Natanz and Qom, facilities that inspectors didn't even know existed. The second major concession creates an even greater danger, that Iran could get to the bomb by keeping the deal.
The Prime Minister then put forth his suggested demands of the Iranians.
The world should demand that Iran do three things. First, stop its aggression against its neighbors in the Middle East. Second, stop supporting terrorism around the world. And third, stop threatening to annihilate my country, Israel, the one and only Jewish state.
At times, it seemed Netanyahu was attempting to teach a course in negotiation skills.
Now, if Iran threatens to walk away from the table, and this often happens in a Persian bazaar, call their bluff. They'll be back because they need the deal a lot more than you do.
Towards the end, the Prime Minister once again noted his faith in the U.S.'s support of Israel.
But I know that Israel does not stand alone. I know that America stands with Israel. I know that you stand with Israel.
After finishing his speech, Netanyahu remained on the podium for a number of minutes, basking in the applause. The coming days will reveal if he receives a similar reception back home.
Joining us from Washington, D.C. now via Skype is Times of Israel correspondent Rebecca Shimoni-Stoyle. Rebecca, good morning to you. First of all, passionate speech, everybody's speaking about it here, but what were the reactions in the United States post the Israeli Prime Minister's speech?
Well, obviously, the reactions are quite mixed. I think it was striking that one fallout of this speech is that there is a anti-Netanyahu narrative that is taking shape. If before the opposition to Netanyahu was kind of individual, was sporadic, now you see a real narrative that is displayed in the comments of a couple dozen Democrat representatives who did not attend the speech, and by a couple who did. So I think that's one factor that has been really interesting to me today. Another factor, of course, is that this speech got a lot of attention. There was a certain amount of debate as to whether or not this speech would really capture not just the inside the Beltway folks who look at this for a living, but the folks outside the Beltway. And it does look, in fact, like a lot of Americans were very interested in what was going on today.
Yeah, Rebecca Shimoni-Stoyle, very valid point. It seems that it did, interest the bulk of Americans. Thank you for joining us from D.C. Aviv Bushinsky, former spokesperson for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. I wanted to start with you because maybe you know the mechanism behind the decisions. When the Israeli Prime Minister decides to do that, and of course I know that the argument is Iran is very dangerous, etc., etc., etc. But it is. Nobody can take away from the fact that for the last 48 hours, we saw the Israeli Prime Minister, the American President, basically at a tit-for-tat of speeches one against the other. Is there a realization, do you think, in the mind of the Israeli Prime Minister that this is, at the end of the day, this will affect or did affect the relationship with the White House itself?
I think it's greater than that. I think that Netanyahu really believes that the Iranian nuke is a real threat to the existence of Israel, and that's what is leading him. Netanyahu is always looking for something that people can say, hey, I can see here active leadership. I remember that once he didn't vote, he abstained, and he said, oh, this is not an act of leadership. And he is fetching for showing everybody that he is a real leader, on the same line with Churchill and other. When he was invited to the Congress, he immediately announced that only one person, Churchill, had the pleasure or was honored to speak 3 times there. So that's what Netanyahu believes. Of course, that the essence of going there is politics. He wants to win the elections. That's what leads him. And to be frank, that's what he wanted to gain. And I think that in a way, he gained it.
Do you think that's the main question? Do you think he gained it? Do you think that this actually gained him traction in the Israeli elections?
I think it did. I think, we have to see the polls and, of course, wait for the results. But I think that the people the people from the right that were undecisive or undecided thought, okay, this is a real leader. We can count on a guy like that can go and speak and stand for the cause of Israel.
Let's break it down, actually, first of all, from the American reaction to that speech, because the elections are an interesting, valid point. That said, Obama yesterday did react to the Prime Minister's speech in a statement shortly, a short while after the speech was given. Let's have a listen to what the American president had to say in reaction to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech.
On the core issue, which is how do we prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, which would make it far more dangerous and would give it scope for even greater action in the region, the Prime Minister didn't offer any viable alternatives. Keep in mind that when we shaped that interim deal, Prime Minister Netanyahu made almost the precise same speech about how dangerous that deal was going to be. And yet, over a year later, even Israeli intelligence officers, and in some cases members of the Israeli government, have to acknowledge that, in fact, it has kept Iran from further pursuing its nuclear program.
Sheldon Shore, I'm a representative of the Democrats in Israel, and you see the American president, of your persuasion, giving a statement as such and saying that what is the alternative that Netanyahu is offering? Does that not diminish also the place of the American president? And what about the argument that, many people supporting that speech are saying that Obama is just set to sign that deal come hell or high water for a certain point of legacy? And, do you think that, that argument holds water?
Well, look, we saw an incredible political theater yesterday. The atmosphere was electric. The message was well received. It was given out to all the American people and to the entire world, and everyone was listening. And frankly, I agree with every word that Prime Minister Netanyahu made. However, the question is, this is an extraordinary thing to go into the Congress, a foreign leader, and criticize the sitting U.S. president, because that's what he essentially did. Is he said that the president is not doing a good job and he's making a bad deal. And the question is this the right forum to do that? Because every one of his ideas, as even President Obama said in that little clip, every one of those ideas have already been conveyed time and time again to the American president. The American president took that into consideration in making the negotiations, trying to get the best deal possible. And you can't always get everything. And so this is what the president is trying to do. So to go in there to embarrass the president and to strengthen, and what essentially tried to do is to strengthen Congress against the president, to try and embolden Congress and give them more power against the president, to try and limit the president's power to make foreign policy. This is absolutely extraordinary.
By the way,
this is unprecedented.
By the way, Sheldon, I was surprised to hear Obama's reaction that he said, I didn't listen. I didn't listen to the speech. I read the script. It's like I didn't read the book. I watched the movie.
Well, he was in the middle of
a discussion. The first bit of that line was I was busy with the movie.
But he was busy. He was busy at the time talking about Ukraine.
Other people were speaking.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing the work while other people are speaking, which again, we need to never. But hold on, it's an interesting development because while the American president was doing other work as the Israeli prime minister was speaking, also yesterday, simultaneous to the speech, and Mark, this is for you, the Republican, it was announced that the Americans and their Iranian counterparts are meeting in Switzerland almost at the same time, that progress is being made. So much progress so that John Kerry, the Secretary of State, comes out and saying the talks are very productive today. So what's the point of this speech? Is it really going to make any type of dent?
Well, first of all, it made a huge impression in Congress. Remember, there's legislation that's been introduced by Democrats and Republicans in order to bring this agreement, if it in fact gets signed, in front of the Congress so that they can have a proper look at it and chime in on the issue.
But can it stop a deal? Come on.
Let's wait a minute, Yael. I mean, first of all, the whole purpose of the speech is to raise the consciousness of not only the people in front of them. By the way, Senator Dianne Feinstein, who called Bibi arrogant earlier in the week, all of a sudden is starting to talk about the fact that, whoa, 10 years is a little bit too little. We need 15. We need another 20 years. That's Feinstein. I mean,
why not 100?
Huh?
Why not 100? 100
years.
Yes.
Well, that's okay with me. But in any case, this is a major leader of the Democratic minority, and her views have changed almost overnight. There are others like Robert Menendez from New Jersey, who spoke at AIPAC the day before, who spoke extremely adamantly against the White House's policy on this. And the other thing I think the viewers need to remember is how the White House reacted to the speech both before it was made and afterwards. I mean, this was not a spat. This was not an issue about protocol or etiquette. This was an issue about substance. The White House is worried about what Netanyahu had to say about this agreement because he made a lot of sense. And he spoke, as Sheldon pointed out, not only to the 500 and some members of Congress who were there yesterday, but to millions and millions of Americans and many people around the world who haven't gotten the straight scoop from their president.
But I'm wondering out loud, actually, also with the Israeli counterparts in the studio, do Americans really care? The American public, seriously, do they really care about the Iranian...
You should ask us, not them.
No. The American public, do they really care about...
By the way, I'm an American citizen.
I take it back.
And does it really matter
what the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, but does it really matter what the American people care about to the Israeli elections and to this?
Ask President Wilson about what happened with the League of Nations in 1920. I mean, the American people, when they do care about something that concerns foreign policy, have a big impact.
By the way, according to the polls, most Americans don't know who Netanyahu is.
Oh, Aviv,
that's what I've heard yesterday.
They do not. No, but it's a valid point. That said, because we know it was not...
There is a joke I heard recently on American TV. Do you spell Iraq or Iran?
That was one of the big purposes of the speech, because the average American does not care about foreign policy and does not want to get involved in foreign wars. Every time they get involved in a foreign war, like Iraq and Afghanistan, they get burned.
This speech was intended for Israelis?
Yes. Yes?
Boy, I tell you, I must live in a different universe. I mean, I'll tell you just an anecdotal story. Yesterday, I got a call from a client in Rhode Island. Okay, a Democratic state, par excellence. The thing he was looking forward to, he wasn't talking to me about politics. He was calling about a legal matter. He called to tell me that he couldn't talk because he was waiting to see the Prime Minister's speech. This notion that the Americans don't care about foreign policy is generally true, not about this issue. Take a look at what happened in the 2014 elections, where the Republicans took control of the Congress. Foreign policy, right after health care and the economy, was the top issue. Tom Cotton from Arkansas told me specifically that foreign policy turned his election in Arkansas.
Well, I mean, whether Americans, care about foreign policy or not, I would beg to differ that, but I want us to move along because there was a very valid point that was made here in the studio before the cameras rolled. And, Ksenia, you are with Hatnu'a, right? Okay. Journalist turned Hatnu'a, I'm a political member. Yesterday, the opposition in Israel, so to speak, Bougie Herzog or Yitzhak Herzog was
He's legally the head of opposition.
Was giving a speech shortly after the Israeli Prime Minister stood on the Congress stage, and the following things that Yitzhak Herzog had to say were a reaction to that speech. Let's have a listen first, and then actually check what you think that means. Let's have a listen.
Make no mistake. As Prime Minister, I will totally be committed to ensuring that Iran never develops a nuclear weapon. And on this, we have no argument with Prime Minister Netanyahu. But the Zionist Union has a different approach. We will protect Israel against a nuclear Iran by working together with our allies and with our best friend, the United States of America, and not against it.
Now, when the opposition leader says something like that, I want to go back to a point that was said here. Aviv Bushinsky, who is a polished also political commentator, and I'm putting you guys on the spot, said, why didn't the opposition members actually come out and say, and we can all agree that what was said in the Netanyahu speech was nothing new. Was nothing new, and why doesn't that come out as the opposition line? Because
first of all, President Obama said it for us. And also I think every Israeli who heard Bibi's speeches many times can make his own opinion for himself, because we all knew what will be in this speech, and really, indeed, there were no surprises. It was a well-prepared speech. Yes, he obviously prepared for it for the last 6 years, so it took him some time. But yes, he's there. He's in the Congress. The public is sympathetic. We knew about that also. But also, if he would be reading a phone book of Caesarea, I think he would be getting the same response. In this regard, yes, we know that Iran is dangerous. Yes, we know that nuclear Iran is something that nobody wants. Nobody in the international community, not the Arabs, not the Russians. Nobody wants nuclear Iran. So Obama is aware. Everybody is aware. So why to destroy the so much important strategic relations between Israel and the United States? And why? And Obama has still 2 years in the office. After that, who knows what will happen? So we are destroying our relations with the U.S., with the most important player, basically. For what?
Well, for another time.
I think if he would be speaking in AIPAC, the same speech. Yes, he could be speaking in AIPAC. Everybody would tune. Everybody would be listening, and I think there will be much more impact if it would not be politicized.
You're saying he did not need the stage of the U.S. Congress?
No, I believe so. Yes, because everybody would be listening to him. Yeah, even if he would be speaking in AIPAC.
Well, which is what I said, that by doing this in the Congress, he's strengthening the Congress in its struggle against the president as to who controls American foreign policy, and to that extent, inserting Israel into the American political system and directly attacking the president. That was dangerous.
You have to put things into context. He didn't infiltrate into the Congress. He was invited by the Speaker of the House.
He played along with the Congress.
He has good friends in Washington. He
would be invited by Ahmed Tibi before some important elections. I could only imagine what would be the outcry here in Israel.
I understand, Ksenia. I understand that you are here as a political candidate. I mean, I guess, and you got to say what you've got to say for your elections. But I'll tell you something. I mean, you completely misread the United States people. You completely misread the Congress. And the fact is that this Prime Minister was invited not to be part of some kind of constitutional struggle with the White House.
But that's what happened.
Really?
Well, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly the major effect of this whole thing.
You're talking about an issue that everybody around this table agrees affects the existence not the security only, the existence of the state of Israel. And the prime minister, who happens to be the prime minister at this time, you can't do anything about that, who happened to be the foremost spokesman, Xenia, for this issue for not long before he became prime minister, and is singularly responsible for the international community, including Russia, which has backed off,
He did not stop the nuclear program of Iran for all the years. It's now closer than ever.
Do you acknowledge that there are sanctions on Iran?
Did you know that sanctions never stopped Northern Korea or any other country?
Actually, he did say something new. He said it's a bad deal, which means he is
Not
directly criticizing the president, criticizing the president's ability
to make a deal. He said that the deal should include 3 conditions that are new. That Iran has to stop its terror, has to stop attacking the people, its neighboring states, and it has to stop threatening the annihilation of the state of Israel.
But again, do you believe it's feasible? Do you believe it's feasible?
I believe it has to be on the agenda.
I totally agree with what Netanyahu said yesterday. I'm an Israeli. As an Israeli, first of all, I'm an Israeli. As an Israeli, I'm proud with his speech and the way it was delivered. But if you compare, what did Netanyahu achieve in other deals when he went when we had Tzuk Eitan? What deals did he manage to make?
Just to criticize every possible.
It's easy to preach. Iran, it's good or bad, they exist, and they exist because of him. He brought the United States and the Europeans kicking and screaming to the table about the Iranian sanctions. Now they want to get it. Now they want to make a lot of money and get rid of the sanctions. I understand that.
Never ever stopped anybody from getting a nuclear weapon or any other very dangerous weapon. I academically researched the issue of sanctions. So not the Northern Korea and not any other country could be stopped. Even Iraq, that didn't have eventually the weapons of mass destruction. It cannot be stopped by sanctions.
We do nothing Iran. We accept their nuclear weapon.
No.
And we let them control the Middle East.
Did you hear it? Your president has a deal, no? Are you familiar with all the details of this deal?
Are you?
Yes, but apparently Obama is, and all the leaders of the international community.
So we take Obama at his word. Trust me. Okay, like we say in Hebrew, smoch alai. Don't worry about it.
You can just wait until they will get, without any deal, they can get the nuclear weapon.
After Obama's record in the Middle East?
You can just stop and wait until they will get in a year.
Now I think the Israeli public needs to hear what you're saying, because that's what they're going to get.
Without a deal in a year time.
And Mark, we're still on the table. 1 second.
Yes. Sorry.
I see one little bit of light out of this whole discussion, and that was the statement by Netanyahu that even if you don't want to hold off a deal because Iran is still a nasty country and still promotes terrorism, if you don't want to hold off the deal now, at least by the time the sanctions are going to be lifted, they have to prove themselves that they want to be a normal country like every other country in the world. And this at least is one ray of hope, because there's a fundamental difference in approach between President Obama and Netanyahu. President Obama wants to delay Iran having a nuclear weapon. Prime Minister Netanyahu wants to prevent Iran from the capability of developing a nuclear weapon ever. Of course, if Iran were a normal country like every country in the world, no one is trying to suggest.
Most of the countries are not like most countries.
Yeah, right. All right. We don't have a P5+1 discussion against England or France because they are normal countries. We have it against Iran. So if during the next 10 years Iran does temper, fine. So this may be one way out of it. To sign the deal as it is right now, but to put in that clause that Iran has to change before the sanctions are lifted.
Very important. I mean, we have very little time left, but I do want to move on to a different subject, and Aviv, I'm putting you on the spot again. At the end of the day, whether we believe it or not, everybody that there was political capital to be gained for Netanyahu in that speech, yes or not, for the Israeli elections. Aviv Bushinsky, do you think that speech, with it, and I'm not talking about the pump and circumstance of it, I'm talking about standing on that stage and getting the ovation, that will make a dent with the Israeli voter, that the Israeli voter, I'm talking about the people of Israel, or they're just so numb to this issue already that they don't care?
No, I think that the people that are looking for a leader, and I said it in a different occasion, people maybe dislike Netanyahu, people maybe don't like the way he goes and, bullseyes to the others, but when you see the way Netanyahu presents the things, and they think, okay, maybe we don't like this guy, but we hardly trust the other guy. And I think that was a good emphasis to show that Netanyahu is a very good speaker, a leader, maybe we don't like him, but, you know, when you see the leader of the opposition, he's not the most charismatic person on earth.
Zeni, putting you on the spot, that's been the argument, you know, that Israelis do feel, or the strategy of the Netanyahu camp has always been, yes, but there's nobody else to vote for. And, you know,
which is a pity, by the way.
From what I hear, first of all, there were polls yesterday, and 55% of the Israelis do not believe that Netanyahu can make any change with his speech, as good as it can be. This is first. Second of all, half of the Israelis, again, according to Rothschild polls, they believe that it was unnecessary speech, that it will be unnecessary and destructive for the relations between the U.S. and Israel. So not all of the Israelis are looking, you know, with real eyes and just saying that, okay, he's speaking so well, so yes, then there is nobody else. No, I think it's a Herzog proof that leadership is when you are with your own people. Before the elections, you are on the border of Gaza, and this is the true security problem, okay? This is something that it's not in 10 years, not in 15 years. This is tomorrow. Another war with Gaza can happen
Mark,
tomorrow.
We have a minute.
Well, the only thing I want to say is that Ksenia's comments, if it's true about the Israeli polls, show that the decision to go to Washington on the part of Netanyahu was not only bold vis-a-vis and courageous vis-a-vis the White House and administration, but also courageous in terms of the possible boomerang effect on the elections here in Israel. And I think that speaks highly for him.
But I think there's at least one thing this speech did, and I think it's going to be a lasting effect here, is that it changes the nature of the debate. Right now, he's very clearly in front of the entire world, what are the problems with Iran? The deal, whatever the deal is, somehow will now have to relate to the arguments that I think Netanyahu made in answering to it, because if there is no answer to this question, if the deal doesn't do it.
Quickly.
That maybe changed the debate, but here in Israel now the question will be whether we're going to continue talking about the nuke or about the tents and Rothschild.
Sadly, all the time we have. I had fun, guys. Thank you for being here, all of you. When we get back, we go to the heart of Tel Aviv to hear what people in Israel really care about. Stay with us. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning and welcome to I-24 News Morning Edition on this March. My God, I keep forgetting the date. 4th. Thank you, Ruthie Sinai, Senior News Editor, and my guru mother. 2015. Thank you for staying with us as we move along. And in the previous section, we discussed Netanyahu's speech that everybody was speaking about in Congress. But to get a better feeling for what people in the street of Israel here really care about, we go live now to the heart of Tel Aviv, where our own Ron Friedman is standing by. Ron, good morning to you. Where are you and what's going on?
Hi, good morning, Yael. So as you said, I'm here in the heart of Tel Aviv, Rothschild Boulevard, in one of the commercial and cultural hubs of Tel Aviv, of the country in general. So in the last segment, you talked about Netanyahu's speech before Congress. As you can see, it didn't exactly shake the foundations of the city. Everything's standing here. The threat of annihilation by a nuclear-armed Iran hasn't exactly sunk in here. People here are more concerned with their daily life. And where I'm standing behind me, you can see the people pitch tents. This is a throwback to the 2011 social revolution. People who are homeless, who can't make rent, pitch tents here to protest the high housing costs and high costs of living in general in the country, trying to raise it as a central agenda of the elections less than 2 weeks ahead. I'm actually joined here by one of the organizers, Oren Pasternak. Oren, thanks for joining us. So did you watch Netanyahu's speech last night?
Yes, of course. We all watch it here. And we are better here in Hebrew, less in English to talk about the local issues, and we prefer that our Prime Minister will talk to the people. And as you can see, the people here don't understand why, as there is housing crisis in Israel right now, there are problems of education, social economic things. The Prime Minister goes on a plane to America to speak to the Congress. The Knesset is the parliament here, and he needs to speak to the people. What we say since Sunday here in the event that we open is very simple. The Prime Minister talks about life itself. We are life itself here. The tents, 150 salaries for an apartment. I think Netanyahu confused yesterday. He mentioned the word Iran 103 times. I didn't hear any word about public housing, about education, about healthcare system, about the real problems that we are shouting since 2011, and the social economic issues. And as we can see since the start of these elections or in the last year, he's trying to divert the issues from the internal issues to the security issues. By the way, I'm an officer, a captain in the Armored Corps, and I will defend my country. But I think the most important thing, and not only me, the most important things are the internal issues and our economical crisis, and that's why we opened this event. That's why people are joining, and I hope we'll succeed this time. And definitely, it's a thing that should be happening during elections.
I understand you actually had a public viewing of his speech here yesterday. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yes, we had actually a split screen. One screen was Netanyahu's speech, and one other was pictures from the demonstrations, from couples of public housing, from young couples that have no money for apartment, from activists during the last 3.5 years, and many demonstrations. And we wanted to show the contrast between Netanyahu's speech and the life we have really in Israel, not in ties and in cocktails in Washington, but here in Tel Aviv, by the way, also in the Negev, in the Galilee, are real problems.
Now, I understand you were involved in the 2011 protest as well. That didn't really create political dividends for the social movement. Do you expect anything different this time?
First of all, unfortunately, in 2011, the big winner of the protest was Yair Lapid. I don't think he represents the values of the protest right now, and we need a leader that will go to the, let's say, social democratic way and will present real solutions for the public. By the way, I think there is a big success of 2011. The conversation in the public, the way politicians speaks is only חברתי, social, but it's not only a sticker you put on your back. It's a thing you need to bring solutions to the public. And I hope for this protest, because it's very near to the elections, it will have even a bigger effect. Even though we are not 500,000 people in the street, but a few hundreds. And but 2 weeks before the election, and I think also the Prime Minister knows the effects of few tents here, and also, by the way, in Beersheba. Today we are hearing maybe in Kiryat Shmona there are going to be more tents.
No, I understand overnight there was some worry that the municipality officials would evacuate the tents from here. Where does that stand right now?
We were afraid of it, but the municipality officials came this morning. We are under negotiations, and till now everything is going to stay as it is. I think the municipalities and the politicians, everybody understand this is an important protest. In a democratic state, everyone has the right to protest and to say his political agenda on the street, and I think there is no reason to evacuate those tents. And by the way, there are people here that lives here that this is their only house right now.
Owen Pasternak, thank you very much. Yeah, there you have it. Social issues are on the agenda, at least here in Rothschild.
And Ron Friedman will be back with us, obviously, as we continue this show, checking in also what the Israeli public thinks, not just about the social issues, but also what do they think about women leadership. Ron, thank you for this bit. And of course, this is the time of morning I wait for every single morning. As I flatter Ruthie Sinai, because flattery gets me everything.
Absolutely.
Yep, who joins me today to discuss the news you missed while scanning the headlines. Yes.
Yeah. I have to say, though, this fellow who was interviewed was excellent.
But you know what? Actually, I'm glad you brought us back to that interview, because you said something off camera that I'm interested in, that the social uprising of 2011 in Israel still resonates. And do you really believe that?
I do really believe that. I know you don't, but I do.
Okay, moving along. I can't get the argument out of you. Yes, shoot.
Okay. So going to the press, there was a very interesting and sad event yesterday having to do with the elections in Israel 2 weeks from yesterday. There was a conference to discuss actually women's roles in politics.
Yes.
And it was at a college near Tel Aviv, and one of the speakers was Knesset member Hanin Zoabi, who is an Israeli Arab. She's very provocative, very
controversial. Yeah.
Very controversial. And when she got up to speak, sort of to cut a long story short, she an activist in the audience who is from an extreme right-wing party didn't like what she was saying and took some question of what he threw at her, either water or iced tea or some sort of juice.
Either way, it was very disturbing. Let's take a look at what happened there exactly, and I think they'll explain why we're horrified. Here we go.
This is the police,
The police chief, as you started mentioning, first of all, the venue is the academia. The venue is a college.
Students.
Students.
Absolutely.
And we're looking at, there's a Palestinian flag that she was being cleaned up with. One student there stood up.
It was a shawl, actually, with the Palestinian flag. And this is what actually, look, it was supposed to be provocative on both sides. Let's not be naive
I know,
here.
but you and I actually had this conversation earlier this morning. The violence that you see in this video, in a political discourse,
and a political discourse on democracy, by the way, that was the issue. That was the issue of this get-together. It was supposed to be democratic elections in a democratic state.
In a democratic state, sad and
very sad state of affairs. By the way, the fellow who threw whatever it is was arrested, and the party that he represents said that they do not condone physical violence.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yes. Moving
along. Are we going to talk about the election? Okay. So I don't know. This is something that most countries or a lot of countries don't have. Yeah. And this is in the weeks leading up to elections, each party can put together a clip. It's aired. It's by law. It's aired on television and on radio.
It's a commercial, essentially.
It's a commercial of their platform, essentially. And this was launched last night. Most of the people I know just tune out and turn off the TVs on the appointed hour each evening that this comes on. There is, it's getting to be quite creative over the years. But I think, the question is whether we still need it, given that, all these parties have been putting up clips and videos on social media for weeks.
It's an incredibly valid point. Do we still need it at this day and age?
Yeah, I don't really know, because, the TV is the campfire, is long.
Yeah, isn't Facebook the campfire already?
Exactly.
Okay, so Facebook does feel like the campfire to me, but it has been launched yesterday. It'll be interesting to see, what I think DJs make out of it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay. So speaking of throwing juice and stuff at people, Madonna.
Oh my God, what a transition. Yes,
so Madonna wants to sit down and have a drink with no other than Marine Le Pen. So speaking of right-wing extremism, Marine Le Pen, and speaking of drinks, Madonna, and she said this in a radio interview, and everybody, not just I, were wondering whether she had hit her head when she fell off the stage a few weeks ago and bumped it and gotten her priorities mixed up.
What concussion is working on behind it? Why exactly does she want to sit with Marie Le Pen? Do you know?
Well, there's some question of a lawsuit.
I was about to say something really nasty that a woman shouldn't say, but like, does she just wants to? Well, she doesn't like a L'Oreal.
She actually described the diva of the National Front, Marine Le Pen, as fascist, and so now it's kind of a a sulha kind of.
Okay, it's good. Nice.
Make nice and avoid a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Yeah.
And moving along.
Okay, moving along. So again, still on the liquids, coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah.
Yes.
3 to 5 cups a day may prevent heart attacks. This is the latest, research, on the issue. As we know, over the years, coffee has been bad, it's been good, it's been medium. Now, This
Ruthie,
is...
here's why I love you. Here's my issue with this.
Yeah.
First of all, when somebody comes out with, the research that says that while you're pregnant, it's okay to smoke.
Yeah. I hadn't seen that one.
No,
Okay.
I haven't seen that one. But this is because, weren't we all raised about do not drink that much
Absolutely,
coffee? Dad's going to have a heart attack. No,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but apparently this is, this is they're saying, this is groundbreaking.
For people who now are buying, or somebody signed a deal with Nespresso.
Well, maybe, yeah. But no, I'd like to
sarcastic.
think that this is
valid.
Real,
Okay.
Yeah, British Heart Foundation and so on.
Good dealing with caffeine and, well, who knows? Yes, moving
it
along.
kind of opens your arteries, essentially, is the idea. The way it wakes us up, it wakes up your arteries, or some such, I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, Qatari fatwa. Destroy Egypt's pyramids. Enough with this antiquities.
No.
What
do the Qataris have against the pyramids?
It's not the Qataris. It's some cleric in
Qatar.
But it's been very widely shared on something called Islam Web. It's picked up by various news outlets.
Because the Taliban had it right. Let's destroy anything
well,
that
the
is.
Taliban and Islamic State, which we saw these horrific pictures earlier this week or last week about
I'm speaking of
destroying
these amazing statues in Afghanistan that were being.
You're right.
And it's like, let's destroy anything of cultural historical significance.
Yeah, essentially they're saying the destruction is a duty by the Sharia law.
Can't we move on to? Can't we just issue fatwas? I probably shouldn't be saying this. To architectural designs that we don't like, rather than historical elements. But yes.
Well,
okay.
They're sort of
depressing.
Yeah, very depressing. Okay, let's go on to something even more depressing. Pakistan, parents who are refusing to vaccinate their kids against polio. Hundreds have been arrested, something like 400 parents have been arrested. You can argue till kingdom come about vaccinations. The problem
but I think with polio.
Yeah, the problem is it's a public health hazard, and if you want to go live on an island and not vaccinate your kid, that's
and I think one of the reasons that we're looking at the 21st century for the return of polio in some states in the world is because of the lack of vaccination, which is a terrifying thing.
Should have been eradicated, and it was almost eradicated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now a return in that respect. And yes.
Okay.
Finally, one last one.
Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Yes.
Okay. When she was Secretary of State, she didn't like using the State Department emails. She used her own personal email. And now the question is, this was not a secure
line, clearly.
Yeah, and did she reveal state secrets, and was she being reckless?
Oh, come on. I'm stating my opinion. Are they stretching or what? Come on.
I think so. I don't know where they dug this up, but it's quite a big issue. And it was front page New York Times, and
unbelievable. No, but we'll be following along. Ruthie, always such a pleasure. Thank you for being with us today. When we get back, we present our first in a series of reports about the women of Israeli politics. Stay with us. It's fascinating. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Welcome back. It is still Wednesday, March 4th, 2015. This is still the morning edition. Last I checked, I am still Yael Levi, and I am woman. You will understand in a second why I said that. Kling.
What?
Sorry, I have to show the studio. Kling. What did I say? The only man in the studio. Please listen up.
The last male there is.
The last male there is. This is an important segment, and one that I was looking forward to many times. True. Israel is one of the few countries in the world with a history record boasting a woman prime minister, Golda Meir. But not since the reign of the old lady, as she was nicknamed in the region, has a woman grabbed the spot of prime minister in Israel. That said, women in Israel have become an increasingly important voice in politics. Who are these women? What do they stand for? And do they stand to make a political dent in the future of Israel? So, with 12 days to the elections in Israel, we are very happy to announce and introduce a new series that will follow 6 influential women in the Israeli political sphere, all written, conceptualized by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev and Sean edited by Laurent Tulila, also of I-24 News, that will spotlight this fascinating bit of current political runoff in Israel. So, joining me in studio right now is Tal Shalev, obviously, and also joined by legal advisor for the Israel's Women's Network, advocate Karen Greenblatt. Karen, good morning to you. You're the specialist. Tal is the creator. Tal, take it away.
Well, you know, you and I spend hours talking about men. The diplomatic...
Not you, Kling. Yes. The diplomatic.
The diplomatic and strategic arena in Israel is widely dominated by males and also in the world. So that's usually we talk about men, and the Israeli political arena is far away from equality. We're talking about 27 lawmakers out of 120 Knesset members in the last Knesset, meaning that's 22.5% when women are, of course, approximately 50 or 51% of the population.
Right.
And there is an estimation that the number will grow in the coming elections, but nevertheless, something very interesting happened in the 2015 election campaign, something that it became evident that something might be going on, because all of the Zionist parties, as we call them, the secular Zionist parties, were really up on the women ticket. They were looking for the women ticket. They were looking for interesting women to put in their slots. They were looking for interesting women to recruit. Everyone wanted women at the top, and in a very interesting way, we have all of the winners of the primaries were women. We had Sheli Yachimovich and Stav Shafir reach the first places in the Zionist Union. Miri Regev from the Likud reach a high spot, breaking a record in the Likud, reaching the fourth
seat on the list.
The fourth seat on the list. And we also see Ayelet Shaked from the Jewish Home, who is secular, reached the first place on the list, despite the fact that she's secular and she's in a religious party. So something really interesting is going on. And the fact is that even though there are only 27, the women in the Israeli parliament are extraordinary, I think, in many ways. They're perceived as very good lawmakers. They're as very efficient lawmakers. And we started out with Orly Levy, who is number 2 on the Israel Beitenu list, Avigdor Lieberman's list. She presents, she's considered the social face of Israel Beitenu, but let's take a look and then we can discuss it.
היי, אני אורלי לוי, אני מבית שאן, גדלתי והתחנכתי בבית שאן למשפחה מרובת ילדים. היום אני אימא ל4 ילדים, יש לי תואר ראשון במשפטים, עסקתי בתקשורת, והנושאים שאותם אני מקדמת זה נושאים של ילדים ובני נוער בסיכון, נושא רווחה, הנושאים החברתיים שבעצם הם מנת חלקם של רוב האוכלוסייה במדינת ישראל. אני גדלתי בבית פוליטי מאוד, והחוויות שלי מהפוליטיקה לא היו נעימות בתור ילדה, אבל כשאתה גדל בבית כזה, מן הסתם אתה סופג אליך כמה דברים, אתה בוחר גם איפה לייצג אותם. זה לא חייב להיות באמת בפרונט של מקבלי ההחלטות בכנסת או בממשלה, ואני בחרתי לעשות את זה בתקשורת. ואז הגיעה הצעה שהיא מבחינתי הייתה באמת מה שהציף את הדילמה. את מדברת בנושאים חברתיים. מה אם יהיה לך אור ירוק לשנות ולהריץ את הנושאים החברתיים שבהם את מאמינה? תהיי בתפקיד או במיקום מאוד גבוה ביחס לח"כ נכנס, ועם הבטחה לאור ירוק בנושאים החשובים לך. אני פה, לא? תראי, יש הרבה תגובות שאני יכולה לייחס אותן לתגובות שוביניסטיות, היום פחות, או שהפכתי להיות אדישה. המוטו שלי גם זה אוקיי, אבל שידברו, זה לא משנה, אם זה לא מסרס אותי, אז זה לא פוגע בי ולא פוגע במאבק שאותו אני מנסה. אם הייתי הולכת עכשיו לקונחייה הזו של האישה שנלחמת על זכותה שידברו אליה בצורה שווה, היינו מאבדים את העיקר, ואותו השגנו בגלל שהתעלמתי מזה לחלוטין ועמדתי על זכותי להמשיך ולהביע את דעתי, ולא התעסקתי עם זה שעכשיו מגיע לי שתתנהג אליי בצורה אחרת. ותאמיני לי, חלק מהחוקים שאותם העברתי, אין לי ספק שלא היו עוברים ללא העקשנות שלי והדבקות במטרה, והתחושה שזה אישי. מה, אישה ראש ממשלה? בוודאי, אבל אני חושבת שהנושא של ההתעסקות, של האחריות, של הזמן הפנוי עם המשפחה, אני חושבת שגם ככה הילדים שלי משלמים מחיר, ולא הייתי רוצה לגבות מהם מחיר יותר כבד ממה שגם עכשיו הם משלמים. הדילמות האלו הן דילמות שמשותפות, אני חושבת, לכל אישה שיוצאת לשוק העבודה, החל מחופשות לידה בחזרה לשגרה. אבל אני יכולה לספר לך שאני מגיעה הביתה, לפעמים ב10 בלילה, ואני תוך כדי זה שאני מגיעה עוד על העקבים עם הבגדים, מתחילה להרים כביסה, לזרוק לזה, למיין את הכלים לכיור, ובסוף גם שומעת תלונות על כך שאני לא נמצאת בבית ומבשלת ארוחת צהריים חמה בכל יום. איך הבת שלי אמרה לי, אני לא צריכה לשלם את המחיר של הקריירה שלך, אז תתחילי לבשל. יש רגעים שבהם אני אומרת למה הייתי צריכה את זה, אבל כשאני מסתכלת על למעלה מ-26 חוקים חברתיים, פר אקסלנס, ממש את מתעסקת בילדים בסיכון, בילדים עם בעיות, באוכלוסיות מוחלשות, בדיירי הדיור הציבורי, בנפגעות ונפגעי תקיפה מינית, בנפגעי עבירה קטינים, כשאני מסתכלת על ההישגים האלו ועל הגנה על אותם ילדים, אני אומרת, זה היה שווה כל רגע. אולי לא הצלחתי לעשות מהפכות גדולות, אבל המהפכות הקטנות האלו של הילדים משנים את החיים.
First of all, Tal, I got to say, beautiful, beautiful piece of work, and obviously with us for the next week and a half leading up to elections. Karen Greenblatt, I want to start with you. When it comes to Israeli female politicians, I read last night, and it's also a discussion that Tal and I have been having, that there seems to be a trend that when women enter politics in Israel, they shy away from the feminist agenda. They give up on women issues and just move towards what seems to be interesting to the Israeli public. Is that the case, and why do you think that's happening?
I actually don't think I agree with that, especially not in the last Knesset. I think that the entrance of politicians like Merav Michaeli has really impacted the way that the female Knesset members have cooperated with one another, and absolutely not. Limor Livnat from the right has been a huge supporter of feminist agenda, and it's important to say it's not enough for us to see more women in politics. It's not. We want to see women who work together across the political divides and promote our, women's rights, our agenda, fight sexual harassment, fight sexual violence, fight inequality.
Yeah. Sorry, I yelled that.
Discrimination at the workplace. All of these issues are extremely important, and we do see some really rare cooperations across, the political parties when it comes to women's issues. We've seen Zehava Galon work together with Aliza Lavi from Yesh Atid. We've seen,
Right.
these.
When it comes to female issues.
I also think there's maybe like a second generation trauma from the word feminism. The one that is, it's true. I can say it from personal experience.
Sort of a feminism.
Yes, our generation, the second generation after the 70s, after the big feminist revolution, 60s, 70s, grew up in a world that feminism was the main word. My mother taught me all the time that I can do whatever I want and nothing can stop me. And then you grow up in a luxurious lifestyle in many ways, because you already have we have all these women who have battled for us and have battled for these women. They do not have to put the feminist agenda at the forefront of their activities and their policies. They can keep it backside, and it's not very trendy to define yourself as feminist. I think that's something that's quite widely perceived in social media
I think
too.
it's coming back. You think it's coming back?
I think it's coming back.
And I'm sorry for putting you in your spot, Karen, because I agree with Tal, but I think that if a female politician, I'm sorry to put that on the table, in Israel, would wave, other than Merav Michaeli, okay, would wave the feminist flag as part of her running constituency plan, then she actually would be losing votes in many ways.
Well, just in reality, in 2009, the gender factor is considered the X factor that gave the lead to Tzipi Livni. 3 days before the election, she went on a women campaign, and the women vote is the one that is considered the one that gave her the lead, even though she didn't become prime minister in the end.
I think it's just important to notice that it's not about raising the feminist flag. It's not about, like Beyonce putting the huge word feminist behind you with big lights.
It's about
it's about promoting specific legislation. So, if a member of the Knesset from Yesh Atid, the head of the Women's Status Committee, promotes, tens of laws that fight discrimination at the workplace, that fight the wage gap, that fight, that put women in committees and, all of these things, then it makes a difference for the women voters.
No, a valid point. And because we still have Ron Friedman of I-24 News Morning Edition roaming the streets of Tel Aviv, wondering out loud with you, had a chance to speak to some of the prospective voters in Israel. And people out there, do you think they're ready? Are Israelis ready for another Israeli female prime minister? Not that that's in the cards.
Well, listen, as the man on the team, I wouldn't assume to speak on behalf of women, but from the conversations we've had with people this morning, yes, you know, a woman in a top leadership role would be a breath of fresh air, perhaps more attuned to social issues and women's issues. But like you said, this isn't in the cards. We don't have a main women candidate this time around. People say, yes, you know, we'd like to see more women in leadership roles, promoting women agenda, but unfortunately it's not the top agenda on this election.
That's not in the cards. That's putting Ron Friedman there on the spot. Thank you, Ron. As we move along. Sorry, because I still have the lovely Tal Shalev and obviously Karen Greenblatt in the studio, we're going to make the other man blush. Amit, clean.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going
to do? Seeing you sitting here really, really tense. But you were here with the web review.
Why so?
Never. The spiral viral that is the web review a day after Netanyahu's speech. Yes.
Inevitably, as it just dropped as a bomb on Jon Stewart's Daily Show.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. We're all enjoying
so
this.
Happy.
Late night Jon Stewart. What did he have to say about it?
Well, I think that the most prominent quote would be...
Start with the quote. You can say it on TV.
I know. He clearly does describe the standing ovation Netanyahu received from the happy Republicans as the longest blowjob a Jewish man ever received.
Tyler, control yourself. But I think we have the clip. Let's have a listen to what...
It's a different bit.
It's a different bit, but it is Jon Stewart reacting, maybe post the blowjob line, reacting to Netanyahu late last night on American late night television. Let's have a listen. Comedy Central, courtesy of Hot.
I speak for all Jews, including the ones who don't want me to, because those Jews are wrong. They'll thank me. The truth is, no one can speak for all Jews. For we are a varied and heterodoxical people, a rich tapestry of Judaic and Talmudic. We like to argue. We have a lot of opinions.
Yes.
Well,
I don't know if that's the reaction that Prime Minister Netanyahu was looking for.
I think that's a reaction you're... I don't know. I think it's a reaction you're looking for somehow, somewhere in your mind. You're wondering
what's going on. Well, I know as a Jew, I'm not going to ask Tal what she thinks.
What I am going to ask, however,
no comment. Yes.
I am going to wonder: is this some Republican lawmakers' only way of, living their hidden dreams?
We never know. We will never know. But finally, what else?
Yes, Rolling Stone has I mean, we already know, but this has finally happened. The Wu-Tang Clan.
Yes.
The Wu-Tang Clan.
The Wu-Tang Clan.
The Wu-Tang Clan. Yes.
I can't believe there's somebody else who knows the Wu-Tang Clan. Yes.
Come on, I grew up on the Wu-Tang Clan. This is the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yes.
I would do a gang sign, but I'm so embarrassed.
Do not. But what about the Wu-Tang Clan?
The Wu-Tang Clan. They released an album which was supposed to be their final album, Better Tomorrow, a few months ago. Received so-so reviews, but they also have another album called Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. Only one copy exists.
Oh wow!
It's not for it's going to be on auction. It's going to be auctioned to somebody. According to group leader Rizza, it's been offered up to $5 million for the copy.
No, it's clearly on the way to becoming to becoming collector's item. Sadly, all the time we have. But Amit Kling, you have proven yet again that you are my favorite geek. Thank you, girls, for being in studio. Women. Exactly. See, I corrected myself. When we get back, Focus, the show that takes us to different countries around the world, was in Azerbaijan. We'll take a closer look at why. Stay with us. First, the headlines. Good morning, and thank you for staying with us. I-24 News Morning Edition on this March 4th. 4th, okay, thank you. For 2015. I'm not even
sure myself.
Exactly, but that's why you're here to double check with me. Yes, that would be the fabulous Daniel Ziri of Focus magazine, who's actually here to promote the show that airs tonight.
Tonight, yeah, after the evening edition. We have the show today. We went actually to quite an unusual country, Azerbaijan. I don't know if you know much about it. I certainly didn't much before we made this show. So I just want to tell you a little bit why we chose this country this week. This week was the 23rd anniversary of the Khojaly massacre, a very, very deep scar in Azerbaijani society.
Culture, history, yeah.
Absolutely. It's definitely part of who they are. So let me tell you a little bit about it. If you go back in history, in 1991, when the what we call the former Soviet Union collapsed, all those countries received independence.
Or did it? Sorry, yes.
We're not sure.
We're not sure, yeah.
Anyway, so they got Azerbaijan got independence, its neighbor Armenia got independence, and they are fighting over one piece of territory that is along the border. Probably reminds you of something.
Sounds slightly familiar.
Sounds quite familiar.
Yeah. Everybody
Anyway,
wants the same piece of land. Yes.
The Armenians say that it's theirs. The Azerbaijanis have official control over that part of land. It's called Nagorno-Karabakh, and there was on February 26, 1992, so 23 years ago, just last week, a pretty big massacre where the Armenian forces got into that village of Khojaly in the border in that region and killed in one night 613 civilians, displacing a lot of others.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is the reason, this is something that's very big in their culture. This is something that's very painful to remember for them. And so that's why we chose Azerbaijan. And it gave us also an opportunity to explore the Israeli relations with Azerbaijan.
No, definitely.
Because they are very special. So let's hear the ambassador there.
Definitely. That's the Israeli ambassador.
Azerbaijan is one of the few majority Muslim countries to establish diplomatic relations with Israel. Since 1991, the relationship has improved constantly, while Israel's relations with Azerbaijan's neighboring countries have deteriorated. Let's hear more about these intriguing relations from our next guest, Rafael Harpaz, Israel's ambassador to Azerbaijan.
Monsieur Rafael Harpaz, bonjour.
Shalom Tal.
So usually when we talk about Israel and a Muslim country, we don't necessarily think of a good relationship. In what terms is Azerbaijan any different?
We have a very good relations with Azerbaijan. We look at this as a strategic relationship. It's a deep relationship that covers many areas. It started already in the early 90s when Azerbaijan has received its independence, and we are developing it slowly. There is also a wonderful and unique Jewish history here. Jews are living in Azerbaijan for thousands of years, a country with full tolerance and a lot of respect for Jews and for Israel.
Daniel Ziriam, editor of Focus magazine, that airs tonight. Close look at Azerbaijan. How, when you say, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. When we say Israel and Azerbaijan,
I'm not used to it.
When we say Israel and Azerbaijan are very close, how close? I mean, security cooperation.
So according to the officials, and we stay according to the officials because that's all we know, there's cooperation on many levels. On the economic level, with a lot of oil that's used in Israel coming from Azerbaijan, because this is a country that is benefiting from oil from the Caspian Sea. So very rich country because of that. So there's economic cooperation, educational cooperation in the education field. Actually, the head of the Institute of Science of Azerbaijan was visiting Israel this week to create some kind of cooperation on the educational academic domain. We have cooperation in terms of culture, all kinds of events that are going on. To this year, for the first time, the president of Azerbaijan actually participated in the Shoah Memorial, Holocaust Memorial this year. So there's a friendship there. There is, of course, also cooperation on the security level, because that's what you're hinting on. But the officials don't want to talk about it. When we asked the ambassador, what about security? He said, we cooperate on all levels. So we just have to understand
what that means. But it's, it is a fascinating relationship nonetheless. Obviously, I mean, I know you spoke to other people, but we're just going to touch on it, so to speak, you and I, when it comes to the carpet market of Azerbaijan. Because now I've discussed security. The other thing that interests me are the carpets. Real quick.
Absolutely, really quick. Azerbaijan has a tradition. It's something that's part of their culture, is the carpet making. They actually have schools there to become a professional weaver, a professional carpet maker. And they have a museum that's pretty amazing. You'll see it in focus if you watch tonight. A museum that looks like a carpet from the outside, and they talk about that history and that tradition inside.
Okay, no, and sadly, essentially, it means that if we look at the show tonight, I'm stretching here right now. If we take a look at the show tonight, we're also going to figure out not just how to make a carpet, but how much those carpets sell.
Absolutely, and you also figure out the history behind them, why they're making them, and what they represent in a home, which is a lot of the values of Azerbaijani people.
I really think that if we have a good carpet, okay, that's the perfect place. God, I'm going to make the weirdest transition ever. It's the perfect place to listen to music. That didn't make any sense whatsoever. But roll with me.
You can try to find some kind of connection later and explain
Why am I saying that? Because if music is an international language that crosses countries and regions and boundaries and whatnot, it sometimes also bridges divides in the most bizarre way. So it seems, as is the case with our next story and guest. Turquoise, lovely. Yeah. An Israeli rock ethnic fusion band that performs songs by Arab diva Feiruz. Okay, in Hebrew, that is groundbreaking. Okay, Feiruz, huge and very big when it comes to, regionally the Arab world. Loved by many, but you took her songs, Feiruz, the legendary Feiruz, and you're doing Israeli Hebrew versions. How did you come up with this idea? And before that, let me introduce you. That's Dalit Friedman,
yes,
right? And your co-partner?
Oren Eliezer.
Oren Eliezer. Thank you both for being here. Why Feiruz? Eliezer. Why Feiruz? Why in Hebrew?
Why Feiruz? We both love folk music, and we explore it, and we are very curious to get along with this music. And a few years ago, we met a wonderful, wonderful musician from the Galil, Joe Saman and Salem Darwish, which made a project of Feiruz songs sung by Arab language, and we fell in love. Fell in love with this music.
Was it hard to translate? I think, well, the emotion, the language, was it hard to translate into Hebrew?
Yeah, when I first started it was like I was feeling that I'm walking on a ground that for first time, because it was really like very unusual for me, But I let the music just lead me, and with the lead, we chose the songs together. She saw the songs, the initial translations. If it was, she felt that it is something she could relate to, then we started translating it, and we many times we kept the phonetics. In other times we kept the meaning more, and it certainly created a buzz, because it seems like this is like a live wire. This is like
and that touches people's nerves.
Touches people's nerves in many ways.
How has it been accepted by the audiences?
Well, we didn't know what's going to happen. So the first single, it was I think it was in the end of August, just after the war. It made a buzz
just after the conflict
between
the
Gaza war, yes.
The defense between Israel. You come out with a Hebrew
it was
version
a sensitive period.
Okay.
But it just came out, and everyone just get curious about it, even also in the all region.
Now, I think that we're going to do justice to this whole story when we just figure out what this is that you're talking about, because music instruments are on the table. So let's start with this. You're going to play what for us?
We're going to play Shalu Oti, Saluni Nas in Arab.
Which
it's
means
a very
ask me?
People asked me.
Yeah, people asked me.
Yeah.
It's a very famous and popular song by Feiruz, and we love it.
We love it. Okay.
That was the first single.
Let's have a listen.
Yeah.
שאלו אותי, מה איתך? שאלו אותי, כתבו לי מכתבים והרוח אותם לקחה. לא שרתי מאז שאיתך הייתי, אתה לא כאן עכשיו אז אין לי השראה.
שאלו אותי, מה איתך? שאלו אותי, כתבו לי מכתבים והרוח אותם לקחה. לא שרתי מאז שאיתך הייתי, אתה לא כאן עכשיו ואין לי השראה.
שאלו אותי אליך, הם עליך, שאלו אותי, אמרתי שתבוא בקיץ ביוני. שאלו אותי עליך, שאלו אותי, אמרתי שתבוא בקיץ ביוני. עיניי עצמתי מחשש שיראו אותך חבוי שם, עכשיו כבר יולי, ואהבה כן הייתה כאן אהבה. שאיתך הייתי, אתה לא כאן עכשיו, אין לי אשרה. חשוך, שחור משחור לי, במין הלילה אמר לי אור, תני לי, נרי קבע חשוך, שחור משחור לי, אל תשאלי איך מצאתי אותך, מורה דרכי אלייך, היה ליבי, ואת הקביעה הזאת אשגגועי צרבה, אם אתה לא כאן עכשיו אז אין לי אשרה. סלוני נאס ענק יא חביבי, כתבו למכתיבו אחד הלווה, ביעז עלי غني יא חביבי, לאول مرة ما منكن سوا.
That was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I think, you know, if music can connect these two languages so beautifully, I think people can as well. You know, and that is the main agenda. And guys, this was amazing. We want to go back real quickly to Ron Friedman, who was out in Tel Aviv all day checking with people, not just what the reaction was to Netanyahu's speech, but is Tel Aviv really representative of the Israeli voter? Ron, is that the case? Take it away.
Well, like you said, we spent the morning here in Rothschild Boulevard in Tel Aviv. To say whether this represents all of Israel is difficult to say. We've been talking to people from all walks of life, but it is Tel Aviv. It is the quote-unquote bubble, so it might not represent everybody. But from what we understand here, the issues that are on people's mind are definitely the social, economic issues. You know, the security statements, the threat of annihilation by Iran, or even the more immediate threat of rockets from Gaza, which people here actually experienced during the summer war. You know, they don't touch people on such a basic level as the economic and social hardship that they have to deal with every day. So if that's any indication of the rest of the country, then that's the case here.
But Ron Friedman joining us from the streets of Tel Aviv, giving us the lowdown from the field. Thank you for being with us this morning. Daniel Ziri, obviously, in studio. Focus, watch it tonight. But you guys, Turquoise, amazing, beautiful stuff. Thank you for coming finally.
Thank you very much.
And for letting us listen to this beautiful music. Fairuz in Hebrew. Outstanding. You guys at home, that's it for this morning. Visit us on the web, on our Facebook page, all those social network places. And don't forget to join us again tomorrow morning to start your day, as you should every single day. Have a great one.